Hey everyone, welcome back. In today's video, we'll be learning about a fundamental and powerful concept in C, which is arrays. Now, arrays allow us to handle large sets of data efficiently and are essential in almost every C program. We'll also see how arrays work closely with pointers and even explore how we can use pointer arithmetic to work with arrays. So, let's get started. First things first, what exactly is an array? Now, an array is a collection of elements of the same data type stored sequentially in memory. So, what happens here is that instead of creating multiple separate variables for each item, we can use an array to store all of the items together in a single variable. Now, the key point to remember here is that an array is a collection of elements of the same data type which are stored sequentially in the memory. Okay, so the words collection, data type, and sequentially. These three words should come to your mind whenever we speak about an array. So, for example, let's say we want to store the age of 5 people, and we know that age is an integer value. So, what we could do is we could create an integer array that holds the age of each person. Now, this saves us from declaring multiple variables and lets us access any element using an index. So, let us see how we can visualize an array. So here is the diagram of how an array looks like. Now in an array, the values that we store are called as elements. In order to access these elements, we use something called as an array index. Now one thing to remember here is that if my array is of size n, then the index, that is the first element, will be located at index 0. And the last element in my array will be located at index n minus 1. So if I have an array of size 5, the first element will be at index 0 and the last element will be at index 4. So this is how arrays work. Now let us try to understand this in detail by seeing how we can declare an array. Now the syntax is pretty straightforward. First we specify the data type of the array, that is what type of elements will the array store. After we specify the data type, we give the array a name, that is an identity. And after we give the array a name, we mention the size of an array in square brackets. So the size basically tells us how many elements can I store of that particular data type. So here is an example of how we can declare an array. So let's say I want to declare an array which stores the age of 5 people. So what happens is whenever I declare an array in my memory, the size of 5 integer values will be allocated in my memory. Okay, so in this case, let's say I declared an array of size 5, and in this case it's an integer array. So what will happen here is in my memory a storage space for 5 integer values will be allocated. So let's see that one block here represents one element, and so in such case we will have 5 blocks assigned. Okay, since we are storing 5 elements. So a single integer value is of 4 bytes. So if we are storing 5 integer values, so 5 into 4 will be 20. So in my memory, 20 bytes will be allocated for this array. And in this 20 bytes, I can store 5 integer values. So I can store the age of 5 people, 25, 20, 30, someone is 60 years old, okay, and someone is 70. We can store 5 integer values. So this is how arrays work. Now, let's see how we can initialize an array. Now, initializing an array means giving an array values to store. In declaration, we only declared an array, and when we declared it, basically some storage space was allocated in memory. Now we have to insert some elements into that storage space. Okay, so here's how we can set initial values for the elements. Very simple. What you have to do is we just need to declare an array followed by the assignment operator, and then inside the curly braces we will mention all the elements. Okay, we initialize the array with specific values. Now one key point to remember here is that we shouldn't mention or we shouldn't insert more values than the size of an array. So if my array can only store 5 elements, I shouldn't be assigning 6 elements, because this will give me an error when I try to do this. If I assign elements which are lesser than the maximum size of an array, it won't give me an error. The other elements will be given a default value, which we'll see ahead. Okay, so let's try to implement this with the help of a simple example. So let's say I declare an array. Okay, int main, and here I will define an integer array of age. I will store 5 elements in this: 21, 25, 30, 35, 60. Okay, and now let's go ahead and print the elements. So what I can do here is I can print the let's say the first element. So if I want to print the first element, what I'll do is %d age, and the first element will be at index 0. So let's go ahead and do this, or let's print all the elements. So the second element will be at index 1, the third element would be at index 2, the fourth element would be at index 3, and the fifth element would be at index 4. So like this we will print all the index of all the elements of an array. Let's leave some space between each element, and last we'll return 0. So let's go ahead and compile this, and then we'll run it. So as you can see, this is how I can print the elements of an array. Okay, how I can initialize and print the elements of an array. Now what happens if we do not initialize an array? Now this depends on the scope of the array which we have defined. Now like I told you, scope means, is the array defined inside a function or is it declared globally? In this case, the array has been declared inside the function, inside the main function, which makes it a local variable. So remember one thing, local variables take garbage values. So if I try to print these elements, what will happen here is it will print some garbage values. And if I had declared this array externally, that is outside the main function, as a global variable, by default all elements would take a value of 0. So this is what happens when you do not initialize the elements of an array. Now let us see how we can access the elements of an array and how we can modify them. So one thing here I would like to show you is that rather than using the printf statement every single time, what I can do here is I can just simply use a for loop to print each and every element. So remember, for for loop we will start with the index 0. We'll go up to n minus 1. Okay, so I less than 5. Less than 5 means 4. That is from index 0 to index 4. We will print all the values. This is how we can access the elements of an array. So I'll just again reinitialize it. Let's run this. So as you can see, this is how I can use a for loop to print the elements of an array. Like I said, if I give an extra element, what will happen here is my compiler will give me an error saying that too many initializer values. Now why is this happening is because my array can only store 5 elements, that is 5 integer values. And since I'm specifying an additional value here, my compiler is giving an error. What happens if I specify only 4 values? Let's see. Since this is a global variable, the last element will take a value of 0. Okay. So if I specify less elements, that's not a problem. But if I specify more elements, I will get an error. Now let us see how we can modify the value of an array. So to modify a value is very simple. What I will do here is, as you can see in the second position, or let's say we want to insert an element at the last position. So how I will do that? Very simple. I will just specify that particular index. Okay, let's say the index of the last element is 4 inside the brackets, and I will give it a value of 60. Now what I have done here is I have assigned a value of 60 to the fourth element of the array. Okay, now the array is the variable age here. Let's go ahead and run this and see if the value has been inserted. So as you can see, the value has been inserted at the last element. So this is how we can access and modify arrays. Now, one very interesting concept when it comes to arrays is how they are closely related to pointers. This is one of the most important topics when it comes to arrays. That is how using arrays and pointers we can manipulate data. So here's something cool. The name of an array is basically a pointer to the first element of an array. Yes, you heard it correct. The name of an array is actually a pointer to the first element of an array. In the example which I had shown just now, int ages 5, in this case the word ages, that is this variable, okay, is actually a pointer to ages 0, that is the first element of an array, okay, the first element of an array. So using this ages or using a pointer, let us see how we can access the elements of an array. Okay, so again we'll come back to an example. Now what I will do here is I have my array which is defined. Now here I will declare a pointer, an integer pointer, and I will give this pointer the array, the name of an array. Now like I said, this array here, okay, this array here, that is the name of this array, stores the address of the first element in the array. Okay, remember one thing, age stores the address of the first element, which means age is a pointer. Now using this pointer, now what I have done is I have passed on this address to another pointer. Now using this pointer, we will access the elements of the same array. So let's see how we can do that. Value at age 0 using pointer is %d/n, and here I will dereference the pointer. As you can see, I'm just dereferencing it. And let's see if this gives us the first element. As you can see, it gave us the first element of an array. Now, if I want to access the next element, what I have to do is I have to just increase the value of this pointer by 1. I will just have to add the number 1 to it. Now, why is this? I will explain in some time. Values at age 1 using pointer is %d/n. Here I will take the pointer, add 1 to it, which will give me the next element, and then I will dereference it. This will give me the second element in an array. If I want to print the third element, I will just increase it by 2, and this will give me the third element, and so on. Now here what am I doing is actually this pointer ptr, it points to the start, that is the start of this age array, and we can access elements by using pointer arithmetic. As we saw in this case, pointer plus 1, by dereferencing it gives us the value of the age, that is the second element of the array, which is 25. This shows how arrays and pointers can be used interchangeably in many cases. Now here what is happening is actually the compiler itself takes the size of that element and adds it on. This way we can access every element in an array by just using the simple arithmetic operations, +1, +2, up to n-1. Okay, so that's how we can use pointers to access the elements of an array. Now let us see how we can use arrays with functions, how we can pass arrays to functions to perform some operations. Now in C programming, we can also pass arrays to functions. And when we pass arrays to a function, we actually pass a pointer to its first element. Let's see that. So let's say I define a function, and this function will print the elements of an array. And here I will declare the parameter, that is we'll be taking as input an array and its size. And after we take the input, we will define a for loop. And using this for loop, we will print each and every element. Okay, here I will call the function. First I will define my array of numbers, and inside this I will call each and every element. Now let us see how we can call this function. Print array. So remember one thing, what I have to do here is I have to pass a pointer to the function. Now we all know that the name of the array, that is numbers here, is a pointer to the first element. So we'll just pass this name and we will pass the size. And using this, we can print the elements of an array. Okay. As you can see, we have print all 5 elements. One more thing we can do here is, in my function, rather than giving the parameter as an array, what we can do is we can simply give it as we can declare it as an integer pointer. This means the same thing as I had defined before. So if we compile this and run it, we will again get the same value. As you can see, we got the same value. So in simple terms, when we declare an array, what we are doing is, if I have to show it in a diagram, whenever we declare an array, that is int arr 5. Okay, whenever we declare an array, what we are doing is here is that this declaration returns to me a pointer at some memory location. That is the starting address of the array. Okay, so this is how arrays function using pointers. Now that's an overview of arrays in C, from declaring and initializing arrays to accessing them with pointers and passing them to functions. Arrays are essential for managing large sets of data efficiently, and it also is used a lot in dynamic programming. Now, thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more C programming tutorials. In the next video, we will explore more advanced topics related to arrays and pointers. So, see you there. For till then, take care and goodbye.